Stolen Valour, Narcissists, or something else? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Those who engage in stolen valour, or are sometimes referred to as Walter Mitties, not only attract social condemnation, but in certain jurisdictions they are committing a criminal act. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the concept of a Walter Mitty, Walter Jackson Mitty is a fictional character in James Thurber's short story, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and he's a meek, mild-mannered man with a vivid fantasy life. In a few dozen paragraphs, he imagines himself a wartime pilot, an emergency room surgeon, and a devil-may-care killer. Those who engage in the concept of stolen valour are individuals who claim they have served when they have not done so, and often go to considerable lengths to perpetuate the fantasy by wearing uniforms that they have no entitlement to, and to wear decoration and medals associated with service and acts of valour, claiming that they actually perpetuated them themselves. I'm going to consider certain instances of stolen valour with some notable examples of British individuals, but as you know, it's not just confined to the United Kingdom. There are instances that take place across the world, and there are certain groups that have been established dedicated to outing such individuals. I'm going to look at, first of all, some examples, and then to explore what is the driver behind this particularly odious kind of behaviour. The first example appertains to a man called Jonathan Carley. The BBC reports that a 64-year-old man has been charged following an investigation into a suspected fake admiral at a Remembrance Sunday event. Jonathan Carley, from the Harlock area of Gwynedd, is accused of wearing a uniform bearing the mark of His Majesty's forces without permission. Images widely circulated in the press and on social media showed a man wearing the uniform and medals of a high-ranking Navy officer whilst in attendance at the wreath-laying service in Llandudno on the 9th of November. The incident caused significant public concern, particularly given its occurrence on Remembrance Sunday. It's alleged that Carley has never served and has never earned the medals that are displayed on his chest. The next individual is Baz Porter, who is wearing an array of medals that would rival those worn by Marshal Zhukov, portrayed by Jason Isaacs in The Death of Stalin, who had a huge amount of medals on him as part of that parody. Baz Porter. If Porter had been awarded the medals he claimed, it would have made him one of the most decorated soldiers in recent history. The former soldier claimed to be one of only 3 veterans alive who held the Victoria Cross and Queen's Gallantry Medal. He also pretended he had been awarded medals for Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo, the Balkans, and Northern Ireland. But in reality, he served in the light infantry from 1997 to 2004, and his former partner exposed his fake medal collection. He quickly closed down his website and social media accounts as a consequence of his exposure. Chris Webber is another example of a fake war hero who stole medals from family members who did actually sacrifice their lives in conflict. Pretending he was a Falklands War veteran, Webber duped Rishi Sunak at 10 Downing Street, where he boasted about risky undercover operations. However, he was exposed by the Walter Mitty Hunters Club, who spotted 2 of his medals were non-military, and his cap badge dated back to George VI's reign. Webber served a few months in the Territorials, but other than that was simply a holiday rep and pub singer under the name of Kushti. He later admitted, "My grandfather and father both served in the Second World War, and I wanted to be like them." The final example is Jo England. England claimed she was awarded the Queen's Gallantry Medal during an Afghanistan tour with the Royal Army Medical Corps. Posing as one of the most highly decorated combat doctors, She claimed to have performed vital surgery and helped children in Africa and soldiers on the front line in Ukraine. But the Ministry of Defence confirmed she never served in the army, exposing her as a lying fantasist. She unapologetically admitted wearing the medal for a laugh, having borrowed it from a friend. Just 4 of the many examples of individuals that engage in stolen valour, a particular kind of con activity which not only and rightfully annoys veterans, but also their families and members of the general public. The fact that an individual has chosen to serve their country and potentially lay down their life in defence of that country is the ultimate sacrifice, and for someone to claim that they similarly have offered to do so when they have not only makes a mockery of those that have served, but also of the principles that those individuals have adhered to. It attracts considerable social condemnation, as it ought to, and as mentioned earlier, in some jurisdictions is also a criminal offence. But what drives individuals to engage in such behaviour, to portray a life that they have never led, to take the mantle of other people's achievements and pass them off as their own, to engage in behaviours whereby they could readily be exposed with all the consequences, social condemnation and criminal, that might follow from it? Well, in some instances, the driver is that the individual holds a fixed yet false belief about their military service, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. This could be individuals with late-onset schizophrenia or delusional disorder. They may sincerely believe, for example, that they undertook secret missions for the SAS or Delta Force, and that they were so classified that no actual records exist. These people tend to be genuinely distressed when confronted. They truly believe that they have engaged in these missions and such service. In some instances, the behaviour is where it comes from ordinary people who are crippled by feelings of inadequacy, who, in effect, try on a military identity in the way that other people would buy a sports car or a suit. Common triggers for this inadequacy is, for instance, a family tradition of service that they could not live up to. For example, the son who failed selection for the Royal Marines, but then tells people he served. An example, as you've just heard, was of one man who said that his father and his grandfather had served, and he wanted to be like them. It might be that he was driven by feelings of insecurity, shame, and a wannabe phenomenon. Other triggers could be civilian life failures, unemployment, divorce, bankruptcy, that make the imagined certainty in respect of military life deeply appealing. Social media and the democratization of heroism. Seeing genuine veterans receive praise online creates envy, and this is a low-effort way to harvest the same praise. These individuals often start with small exaggerations. For instance, "I was in the cadets" becomes "I was in the reserves," becomes "I did a tour in Helmand," and escalate because each lie is rewarded with attention. It is pathological lying which correlates with narcissistic traits, something I shall be returning to shortly, but is not narcissistic personality disorder of itself. In many instances, it could simply be financial con individuals. For example, in the United States, the Department of Veteran Affairs disability system creates powerful financial incentives. A fabricated PTSD claim rated at 100% can be worth more than $3,500 per month, tax-free for life, plus free healthcare and home loans. The 2019 to 2023 Veteran Affairs fraud crackdown revealed thousands of cases where individuals with no military service at all had received millions in benefits by inventing combat histories. Accordingly, these individuals, having reduced emotional empathy for those affected by their fraud, simply see financial considerations as more important and engage in the fabrication of valour. Crowdfunding platforms have also amplified this. A GoFundMe page titled Decorated Navy SEAL Battling Terminal Cancer can raise 6 figures in days, often actually being run by a healthy 35-year-old with zero service who shaves his head for the photos. Again, the financial gain causing them not to have any consideration for the lies that are being told. In some instances, it might be cultural and social reinforcement. Certain subcultures actively enable stolen valour. For example, some veteran motorcycle clubs and online communities have lax or non-existent verification processes, which allows posers to easily infiltrate and then gain status. Political campaigns in the United States have repeatedly fielded candidates who exaggerated or invented service, for example, claiming combat decorations that they never received because the image of a tough veteran polls well. Again, there is an incentive to do so. The entertainment industry glorifies special operations soldiers to an almost cartoonish degree, creating a template that inadequate men feel they can simply step into. Paradoxically, some genuine veterans engage in a limited form of stolen valour by exaggerating their own experiences. A soldier who served in a relatively safe rear area base may claim frontline combat because they feel their real contribution is not enough to justify the respect they crave, or because they suffer survivor's guilt and want to feel that they earned their survival. It's also the case that in some instances, chronic traumatic brain injury, usually from contact sports or accidents, can produce confabulation and grandiose delusions that mimic stolen value. Heavy alcohol use and early dementia also erode reality testing and can lead older men to remember service that never actually happened. Another instance is that there is a subgroup that suffers from factitious disorder imposed on self, hitherto known as Munchausen syndrome. Now, I've explained that many individuals that experience Munchausen syndrome or Munchausen syndrome by proxy are actually narcissists, but there is a group that is separate from that of narcissism, and these individuals derive psychological gratification from assuming the sick or injured hero role. Fake PTSD claims are especially common because they elicit sympathy and caregiving. They provide an excuse for life failures. I can't hold a job because of my service-related trauma. In some countries, they unlock generous disability payments and medical priority. Unlike malingering, where the goal is obvious external reward, factitious disorder is primarily internally motivated. The raw reward is being seen as special because of suffering. However, the line can blur, with many factitious patients eventually discovering the financial perks, and thus they slide into outright fraud. One of the largest drivers of this behaviour, however, as you would expect, is narcissism. The fact is, for a narcissist to claim, for instance, to have served in an elite unit, the SAS, SEALs, Rangers, Paras, etc., or to have been awarded high gallantry medals, instantly elevates them from above ordinary civilians. This allows the narcissist to have an supposedly unassailable claim to superiority. I'm not like other men, I'm special. It allows the assertion of control by way of potential admiration from people. Thank you for your service. It also can act to nullify potential criticism, which is a threat to control. After all, who would dare question a war hero? It comes with particular residual benefits: free drinks, political office, sexual partners, or charitable donations can be obtained. For the narcissist, pretending to be somebody who has undertaken service, pretending to be someone that has been decorated, or having undertaken service but exaggerating the extent of achievements and decorations, is something that particularly appeals to the narcissist. It allows the assertion of control and the nullification of control. The response of individuals to this by way of the provision of sympathy, admiration, appreciation is, of course, fuel, the lifeblood of the narcissist. Naturally, claiming to have been a member of the armed forces and taking the achievements that other people have acquired is classic character trait acquisition. Time and time again, the individuals who engage in stolen valour or Walter Mitty's are acquiring the character traits of the various disciplines, be it the Navy, the Army or the Air Force, be it the Marines, be it special units, special operations, so that they take those qualities and pass them off as their own. The commission of stolen valour is a massive example of character trait acquisition. It also, as I've just mentioned, comes with various residual benefits, particularly in relation to certain financial incentives. It shows a sense of entitlement, whereby the individual believes that they are particularly special. It is also the case that they are maintaining that they are actually special without any commensurate evidence of the achievement itself. They believe that they should only fraternize with a special group in relation to those who have served. They have an unlimited fantasy of success as a consequence of having served. They show no accountability for their behaviours because there are those who repeatedly engage in this behaviour, parading around in the uniform when they go shopping in a mall, going into the pub and attending particular events which are reserved for those who have actually served. It is the case that they're exhibiting grandiosity because they're exhibiting the fact that they believe themselves to be superior by virtue of having served. It shows magical thinking that they have done this also. It's demonstrative of a haughty and dismissive behaviours because they are basically saying to people, you shouldn't challenge me because I am a war hero. I have served. It's manipulative because it is the utilisation of triangulation with having served for the purposes of gaining the prime aims. It's telling lies. It shows a lack of boundary recognition by assuming the character traits of other individuals. And of course, it's part of the narcissistic dynamic by virtue of demonstrating character trait acquisition, the need to assert control, the need to nullify a perceived threat to that control. Accordingly, whilst there are numerous different drivers that will compel certain individuals to engage in the commission of stolen valour, many of those individuals will be narcissists for the reasons that I have set out. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.